The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When the Magi had departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Rise, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt and stay there until I tell you. Herod is going to search for the child to destroy him." Joseph rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed for Egypt. He stayed there until the death of Herod, that what the Lord had said through the prophet might be fulfilled. "Out of Egypt I called my son." When Herod had died, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared again in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Rise, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel. For those who sought the child's life are dead." So he rose, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was ruling over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go back there. And because he had been warned in a dream, he departed for the region of Galilee. He went and dwelt in a town called Nazareth, so that what had been spoken through the prophets might be fulfilled. He shall be called a Nazarene. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
I am often made to think that people oftentimes think priests just kind of pop out of nowhere. One minute, there's a priest that you've gotten to know, and poof, he's gone. And the next minute, here's this brand new one. Where did they come from? Who are they? They just pop out of nowhere. But that's not really true. We have families too. We have roots, a mom and a dad, maybe a sister and a brother, maybe a number of brothers, whatever the situation is. We have family. We come from somewhere. And the same is true of Jesus. Jesus is not a plastic figure like the one we have back in the creche. Jesus was a living human being. He had a mother and a father. He was Jewish, so were his parents. He came from a long line of Israeli kings. He was of the line of David. His ancestor was David and Solomon, all those folks in the Old Testament. He had roots, and he was part of a family. All of a sudden, in that family, there came a crisis. His life was threatened. And so Joseph and Mary and that child moved. Why? Because Joseph needed a new job? No. Because Mary was looking for a house that would overlook the Red Sea? No. No. Their child was threatened, and so they did what they had to do. Joseph said, "Vamos, Let's get moving. Let's go. We have to go somewhere where this child will be safe. And so this very unique nuclear family started moving. A mom, a dad, and one kid. That family was bound together the same way every family should be bound together. That family was bound together by love. Now, Matthew had a very particular point of view when he tells us the story about Jesus, Mary, and Joseph heading into the land of Egypt. Matthew wrote for a Jewish audience. He wanted the Jews to understand better who this Jesus was, that he was a little different than the ones that came along every day. He wanted them to know that this Jesus had roots in the Jewish tradition. He wanted to help them understand their own scriptures. And so he reminds us by sending Joseph into Egypt about another group of people who came out of Egypt into the land of Israel. That people was the Jewish people led by Moses. And so when Jesus comes back from Egypt into Israel, Matthew is reminding his Jewish listeners, readers, about that old Moses who came out of Egypt into a new and promised land. And this new Moses, this Jesus, is now doing the same thing. Joseph of the Old Testament, you remember him. He's the one of the Technicolor Dreamcoat. Remember that, Joseph? What happened to him? He too was in the land of Egypt, brought out because he was a dreamer. Amen? And what happened to Joseph? Holy smoke, he had a dream too. See, these are all the parallels that Matthew is drawing for you and for me, and particularly for his Jewish readers, for his Jewish people, so that they can understand who this Jesus is. And we find that Jesus, Mary, and Joseph go into exile. And we find that such an exile goes on for people even today. The boat people of Vietnam know what Jesus, Mary, and Joseph went through. The refugees from Cuba know what Jesus, Mary, and Joseph went through. People who cross a desert in order to get into the United States, they understand what Jesus, Mary, and Joseph went through. All of them are exiles, and all of them are bound in the same way that all of us should be bound by love in our families.